Our first guest is a living example of the American dream. His story stems from a difficult past that led him to become the man and influencer that he is today. Through dedication and passion, his achievements include former president of Toastmasters Chapter 3225, co-marketing director of NAREP, and co-founder of the San Diego Lowrider Gospel Fest. Who knew? Also worldwide YouTuber. Joining us now is Gabe Mendez. Gabe, what a title. What is going on here? I want to get to all of that. But first, introduce yourself. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. That was a lot to consume right there.
It's a lot of achievements.
It's a lot of achievement, but you don't really see it like in that way when you're like in the trenches doing the work.
Exactly.
But when you get an opportunity to hear it from someone else, it's like, whoa.
So just in the intro there, we said you come from, you've had a tough road getting to where you're at. Take us all the way back. How did it all start? Where are you from?
So born and raised in San Diego. Raised in the South Bay area.
Okay.
So kind of a traditional story, single mother. I guess it's more traditional than it's ever been, right? That's why I say that. So single mother raised, father was in and out kind of the whole life, that kind of situation. She was a strong woman, raised us, 3 jobs, rarely got a chance to see her, so she did her best.
3 jobs.
3 jobs.
That's where you get it from. That's why all those titles exist.
Because I have 3 titles. There we go. Yeah, exactly. So it was challenging, like having to focus on trying to be a good student when I didn't really have a role model, anyone there. So I kind of struggled with that a little bit, grew up, got into some trouble, got into some legal trouble.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so that kind of held me back for a few years and translated into work.
But you learned from it.
Of course.
You learned from all of it, and that's why you are the person that you are today, even though you've had your ups and downs, right?
Yeah, and that's the important thing a lot of people have to understand. It's whatever happened in the past doesn't define who you are. And I think the message really needs to be is, if you decide, it's not what happens to you that defines where you go, it's how you react to it.
Exactly.
And I think if more people understood that message, that, hey, listen, regardless of what happened the past 5, 10, 15 years, we all have the opportunity to make a change today and change our actions so the next 10, 15 years from there are completely different.
Well, like you said, you didn't necessarily have a male role model, but you had a female role model that was teaching you to work hard. So
a very strong and beautiful one. Yeah, so shout out to mom wherever she's at, yeah.
So you said after that, you got to work. So after you realized, you grew from your experiences, what was the next chapter of your life like?
Well, after that, luckily, mom stood by my side the entire time. So
Beautiful.
the 3, 4, 5 years that I was messing up, she stood right next to me. Got everything expunged, sealed off the record. She helped me apply for a job with the state of California.
Wow.
So I was employed with them for a few years. Then the market tanked a little bit. So I lost that and then went into network marketing.
So it's all these ups and downs through your life, but you seem very positive, like a very positive person. When did you realize, when did you finally find that mentality that you're telling us about, of just getting through? Because you didn't have that in the beginning, right?
Yeah. So what happened was my father had just gotten out of jail for the last time. He did like a final stint, like 9 months straight.
Okay.
And he got out, and this time he had said everything was going to be different, but that's what he said every other time before. And so I was yearning for that relationship with him. I wanted always to impress my dad, be with my dad, go to games with my dad, but it never happened. So when he got out of jail this final time, he had mentioned to me like, hey, everything's changed. I promise you, just look. So I gave him the opportunity again, because our relationship, we had kind of stopped talking for a little while.
You still had hope.
Still had hope, right? So I held on to that hope, and I ended up going to church with him one time. And he had attended church for a few weeks, and I saw his actions were changing. So he was a lot more happier, a lot more positive. And I didn't have a real connection with God at that time, so I ended up going to church with him. And that day on the sermon the pastor was giving, he had stopped in the middle of a sermon and said, you know what, I have to give a direct message to someone. There's someone here, and God's speaking to me, and I have to go out there and share this message.
You're giving me chills. What happened?
It's super, honestly, it was like the most out-of-body weird experience in my entire life. Because I'm sitting in the back, long tee was in back then, so I had the long tee, had the glitter all over it. I had the hat on, I had the center shades just kind of hanging. And he gets off stage and he walks into the crowd and he's asking people like, hey guys, there's someone here who needs encouragement. Let's help them. So come on, church, stand up. So within like 2 minutes, the entire body's standing. He calls the band back on stage. They start playing music, the drums, they're singing, everyone's clapping, people are dancing like in the aisleways. And he's like yelling into the mic, stand up, this is why you're here, stand up. And I'm not a believer, right? I wasn't a believer back then, and I wasn't a spiritual person back then, but there was this something that was like pulling me up. And it was like this conviction, like I knew I had to go, but I was embarrassed, I was shy, all these feelings, but I knew if I didn't take the chance, I don't know what was gonna be on that other side. So I stood up. And I walked towards the front. It was like this something carrying me to the front. And I walked there, and he's like, welcome. That's why I say welcome. And he's like, church, come on, let's go. And then all these hands, I just felt all this warmth of all these hands all over my body, and just deep
good
prayer, good energy. Within like a couple of minutes, I think I'm like drenched in like 20 pounds in sweat. I'm on the floor, passed out. I'm bawling like a baby. And I felt like this relief off my shoulders. It felt so good. And that was like the defining moment. Like
you just let it all go.
I let it all go. And the trajectory changed after that. So I went back to my seat. I talked to my dad. He's like, mijo, I told you, like, we're changing. It's good.
Yes.
And that's what led us into the Gospel Fest and everything else that we did after that.
Give me chills. That's a beautiful story. And that's a big part of who you are and how you became who you are.
Right.
After that, you just saw everything in a different way.
Completely different, right? And it takes time. So
it's
I don't want, exactly, you have to work.
It's not just that one action.
It's not just that one action because you have to follow it up, right? And you still have your habits that you have to break. But going through that process makes you more aware of what you're doing. It makes you more aware of what you're thinking, your mentality, what you're seeing, what you're speaking, what you're listening to. And that's kind of what brought me down the path of like personal development, spiritual development, because I had that opportunity to really figure out who I was. And Les Brown one time said that we spend the majority of our life like looking into looking outward. So we never really get to recognize how beautiful we really are as people. And we really depend on other people to tell us how we feel, how we should look, how our hair is my makeup look fine, those kind of things. We're always looking outward, right? We don't walk around with a mirror in front of us. So we rarely get that opportunity. But when we do, we get to see how beautiful we are. So we're constantly depending on other people's opinions on us of how beautiful we look. I finally took a break from dating, became celibate, stopped doing all that stuff, stopped partying, stopped drinking, became very just
dated
pure.
Yourself.
I dated myself for like 4 months straight.
Beautiful.
I decided to get baptized at church for the first time ever. I fell in love with who I was. I fell in love with how tall I am. Just kidding, not the tallest, but but I fell in love how tall I was, how smart I was, how awesome I was.
Everything about you.
What I love to eat, what I love to drink, the things that I like to do. And so I became that dating process of myself. And once I became confident in who I was and I knew who I was, then I can decide on where I wanted to go next.
Perfect. You know what? I want to stop you right there because we need to get into some business. Right after this, we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.